I think that'll do. Let's do this. Hello! So I'm back again with another one of these videos. Today is going to be quite different because I'm having to shoot this from my home because of the current situation. We're not really going out anywhere, we're not getting anything done outside of the house, so this is shot in the house. But the purpose of this video today is about helping people who might be in the same kind of situation, and I know a lot of churches right now trying to produce videos for their services, and so I have tried to put together a video that will hopefully help you make the most of doing video in your house, and things to think about and things that you can do in your home to try and get yourself some good video from home without having to go anywhere. I've actually shot a number of videos all about the kind of current situation and what you can do and kind of tips and tricks. Now, this situation has progressed a lot very kind of quickly, which has meant that some of the videos that I shot earlier on are perhaps not quite so relevant, but I think I'm going to put them together still and put them out because they might still be useful for some people, so I'll do that and get those out for you. But today's video is all about camera angles and positions and settings on cameras that you can use to get the most out of your videos in a house. Now, before we jump into this, there's a couple of things I just want to say to try and avoid with these videos. If you're going to do something like this, if you're going to shoot video from in your home, then try and avoid just a couple of things. So first of all, don't try and shoot the video as if you're still in your church and nothing has changed and everything's all exactly the same. You want these videos to look as natural as possible, and it's not going to be natural to try and preach a sermon as if you're standing on a stage, but actually you're standing in your living room. That's just not a natural thing to do. You don't preach a sermon from your living room. So you might need to just think about the tone of the videos and how you're going to deliver the message. You can still preach the same kind of thing, but maybe just do it in a different style. So it's not a sermon delivered from a platform, but it's a conversation had from a sofa in a living room. And those sort of subtle changes actually can be quite dramatic on the camera, and just try and keep it as natural as you possibly can. Now, that in itself is very, very difficult because this is a very unnatural situation that we find ourselves in at the minute. So trying to make something feel natural when it is unnatural is always going to be a big, big challenge for you. But the more you can do to make it feel natural, the better it's going to be, the better it's going to come across, and the more people are going to be receptive to what you have to say. So I'd probably say avoid doing anything that's just standing up and just speaking to a camera, because you don't tend to just stand up and talk in your house. It's not natural. You would normally sit down. The only time that you're going to be standing in a house normally is if you're doing something, and we'll come on to that in a minute. But normally speaking, you're going to be sat down somewhere. And so having a conversation seated in a home is going to look much more natural than trying to stand up and deliver a talk from standing. So just think about that. So that's today's video. That's what we're going to be doing. Let's have a look at some of these things. So this shot is the first shot that I want to kind of talk you through here. This shot is, I would say, probably the most simple and basic way to get something that looks half decent in a home. I would say if you can do nothing else, then try and do this. And what I've done here is gone for symmetry. So I've gone for my head being in the centre of this wall behind me, this little sofa thing that I'm on here being central to that wall, and I've tried to make all the lines horizontal and the vertical lines vertical, so I'm trying to get all the aspects all right. So I've moved the camera up so it's hopefully in the kind of right position for my head to be in line. But if I'll show you in a second, if I adjust the camera position, in fact, let's do this now. If I adjust the camera position and make this lower down and then angle it up so that my head's back in the same kind of position where it was before, but now the walls are starting to do this and my house is starting to look kind of slightly trapezoidal, and it's a bit of a strange camera angle. So what I try and do is make sure you put your camera in an angle so your vertical lines look vertical, your horizontal lines look horizontal. 2/3 rule, so the head is in the top kind of third if you imagine just sort of, if there were two vertical lines here dividing this screen into three, you want to try and keep your head towards that top third. So my head's in the top third, my vertical lines are vertical, my horizontal lines, so in here I've actually got some exposed brickwork that you can see, so you can see these vertical lines in the brickwork, but also just the line of the back of the sofa. All these lines are vertical lines are vertical, horizontal lines are horizontal, everything's all square and centered. So if you can do nothing else with your videos, just go for symmetry, keep it square, keep it straight, and hopefully you'll be able to get something that looks half decent. Now, another thing that's really crucial to video is the audio, and audio actually can be almost more off-putting, or bad audio can be almost more off-putting than bad video. And if you can't get your audio sounding reasonable, you're going to really struggle. Now, in this space here, again, because it's a conservatory, I can hear straight away that it's sounding quite echoey. I don't know what it sounds like on the mic, but I imagine it's sounding fairly echo in here. Now, one thing that I could do in here, I haven't done it, but one thing you could do is just to get like a drape or a fleecy blanket or even an old duvet or something like that, and try and hang it up somewhere. Two things you could do is that you can get a clothes airer, stick a clothes airer in the corner of the room somewhere and drape a big duvet over it. That will just help some sort of break up that sound a bit. Or even just to put a duvet on the floor, just lie it flat out on the floor is going to help just to absorb sound. But to just put anything anywhere around, on the floor or on the walls if you can, as I say, clothes airers are great. Just stick a clothes airer up and hang a blanket over it, and that's going to help to break those reflections up as much as you possibly can. So the second kind of shot that I wanted to show you is this one, which is, you might call it a table shot, where you're looking across a table, and again it's a fairly natural position to be in a house. You're just having a conversation with people around a table, and it works quite well. It also gives you somewhere to put notes, so if you're doing some kind of a Bible study or something, you can put your notes on here, and it's helpful from the point of view of context for people to be able to see that you've got notes. It's very odd if you had a floating head type video and people are just constantly looking down. People would wonder, what are you looking down at? What's going on down here? Whereas if you can see that you've got a Bible and some notes or whatever you've got, a tablet or whatever it is that you have that you're reading from, at least if people can see that's what you're doing, it gives that context and they can understand what's going on in this video. Now, another thing that I've done here again is gone for the symmetry, so I'm symmetrical to the radiator. I've got a space here where my head can come in between these pictures on my wall. But the other thing that I've also done is thought about the lighting. So the conservatory where I was a minute ago is just through there. What I've done is opened up the doors to let the light come in. And it's quite nice in a video to have light from one side, so just the light side of your face. It just gives a bit more interest to the video. You can light evenly across the whole face if you want to, and have just something that's just soft and lit from all sides, which is probably a bit more of what we had in the conservatory. But from in here, just to have the light from one side is fine, and it can look quite nice to do that. If you've got the luxury of a second camera, it's really nice to do a second camera from the dark side of your face. So if you had a second camera, I'd put it over this side, pointing at my face from this side. But if you're going to do a second camera shot, you want to make sure that they're two very different shots. So this is a fairly wide shot. You can see pretty much the whole of the table. That shot, if I was to go for a second shot over there, I'd do it quite tight and just have head and shoulders. It's quite nice to be able to cut between those two cameras in that way. Now, that's another thing that you can do, is to get up and walk in and out of shots. It's helpful to think through transitions and how you're going to move around, and even if you're just going to shoot a very short, say a 5-minute Bible study, just a very quick video, it's quite helpful to be able to give a bit of movement and something that's a bit of interest and a bit of difference in that video. So to walk into the shot and come and sit down just gives a nice introduction to it, and you can kind of get a bit more of a sense of what's going on in that room. So we can see that we're sat at a table, we can see that there's a dining chair, and then you come in and sit down. We just get a bit more of that picture of what's happening. But I'll just say be careful with those kind of things, that you don't do it too much and too often. So I wouldn't walk in and walk out at the end, either walk in or walk out, and don't do it for every single video. Those sort of things are better off more sporadic, more kind of random, and just be creative in how you use that. Just think about ways in which you could do that might give a bit of creativity to the video. So one other shot or technique that you can use is to do something fairly basic whilst you're talking to the camera. So for example, we can make a cup of coffee while we're talking, while we're doing all the other things that we're doing. And so this just means that we can be doing other things around as we're talking to the camera. It means that there's something a bit more interesting going on, there's a bit more of a story. There are a couple of things just to be aware of when you're doing this though. Obviously one of them is going to be sound. If you're going to be walking around a room, moving around, changing where you're stood, then your microphones might need to adjust. For this I'm just using a little lapel microphone here, which when I use this lapel, what I have is in my back pocket there's a little just portable recorder, which is quite an effective little way of being able to plug in a lapel mic and have it running something in your pocket that doesn't really pay too much of attention, and you can keep a consistent sound even if you're going to be walking around, moving in and out of cameras and all that sort of stuff. And another thing just to be aware of as well is lighting. Now I'm very conscious that there's a light just here above my head, so as I step forwards it lights me a lot more, and then as I step back it disappears. So I do need just to be careful about where I stand, but depending on where you are, you might find that that is more or less of a problem for you. It also gives you the option here of being able to do kind of B-roll sequences, so you can actually add extra footage on over the top. So as I'm still talking, and I can be talking to a camera, we can actually still be cutting into other bits of B-roll footage as well. And this is an example of when it would be suitable for you to be standing in your house, because you'll be up doing something anyway. So whether you're washing the dishes, making a drink, something like that, this is an acceptable reason for be standing in a house. So if you were going to stand to talk, then I would do something while you're doing it. So just be in the kitchen, probably doing something around the kitchen. It's a good reason to be standing up. So if you're going to do that, then do it like this. The downside of doing something like this is it does make more work. It means you'll have to move your camera around a lot more, and also the editing is going to be a lot more complicated. You're going to have lots of bits to put in, but it can make for a more interesting video, so it might be worth considering it, particularly if it's something that you're not going to be doing every day or every few days, and if you've got the time to be able to do it and the time to be able to edit it, it can look quite nice while you're doing it. Again, think about lighting, think about where you're standing in relationship to windows and how that's going to be affecting the lighting. One thing you want to make sure that you never do is to stand with your back to a window, because if you're standing in a position like this, all you're going to end up is with a complete silhouette. I'm just going to be completely black. There's going to be no detail whatsoever on my face right now, so just avoid that at all costs. But pretty much everything else is going to be absolutely fine. So the light coming in from the side, as I say, that works really, really well. Another thing that's great to do when you can is to create some distance between yourself and your background. It's difficult to do this in houses because generally they're smaller spaces, you've got less room to move around, but if you can, do anything where you can pull yourself away from your background, because that's going to create this blurriness, so you can get out of focus down there where I stay in focus, and that depth of field, we call it, just helps to create some separation from you in the background. It makes you stand out and become more the center of attention in the video. So when you want people to be looking at you and to be focusing on what you're saying, it's really helpful to be able to do that. As I say, it can be difficult at times to create that depth, but anywhere that you can, any depth that you can create anywhere is really helpful. So if you can pull your sofa away from a wall, or just generally make some space around you as best you can, you'll find that really helpful in creating that separation. Okay, so just as we close up now, I thought it'd be good just to demonstrate some of the examples that I was saying about with the audio. So right now I'm back in the conservatory. I've done nothing in terms of putting drapes or anything around here at the minute, but I'm going to just change that now. I'm going to put some drapes up so you can see how much of a difference it makes when you start to do that. So let's do that. Okay, that sounds like it's made a difference straight away. I can hear a difference in this room. So what I've done there is I've just put up 2 throws. I've put a throw over the door over here, just draped it over the door, and then I put a throw just here on a clothes area, and just those 2 things just seems to have broken up those reflections fairly significantly. I'm hoping that's going to come across on the recording okay, but it sounds different in the room. That's demonstrated that, and how kind of quick and easy that is just to throw those up there. So there's a few quick tips on how to make some reasonable sounding and looking video in a home if you're in lockdown like this now. I hope they've been helpful for you. If there's stuff that you already knew, it might be a helpful video to share out with other people in your church. So if there are people who are making these videos, perhaps leaders, preachers who's making these videos, then you might want to send this video to them so they can have a look at this. I really enjoy making these videos. They're great fun to make, but I don't just make these videos just for the fun of it. I make them because I want to help people and I want to share this information with people. So if this is something that you've found helpful and you've got something out of these videos, I would love it if you could share it with somebody else. Just have a think if there's somebody who might also benefit from watching these. Please share them around with people. I'd love for more people to be able to get something out of these videos. So if that's something you can do, then please like and share these videos, that would be great. As always, I would love to know your thoughts. So if there's other things that you do for making videos, particularly in these difficult times and these difficult situations where things are not quite perfect, please let me know your tips because I would love to benefit from those as well. And ultimately just have fun and be creative. This is a time where things are tough and things are hard, but you know, necessity is the mother of all invention, and if you want to kind of create something fun and interesting and exciting when situations are hard and things are difficult, then it really makes you think outside the box, and that's when you can really be creative and really try new things. And so I'll just encourage you just to experiment with things, try them out, try something new, try something different, and see if it works, then great, and if not, then you can go back and try something else, and just keep experimenting, keep trying new stuff. Hope that's been helpful for you. I'll see you in the next video. Thanks a lot.